You are listening to New Theory Radio. Theory Radio.
Hello and welcome to another edition of New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa, I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. Happy Sunday, as I hope you're enjoying your May-long weekend. And even though the weather is decent outside, I hope you're still continuing to practice social distancing, as it looks like we are en route to flatten the curve, but we don't want to get too excited because there's still a lot that needs to be done. So I hope you take in this week's episode indoors and hopefully you have the barbecue lit up and you're cooking something, whether it's some burgers or some hot dogs. I actually made some burgers yesterday and they were pretty good. I was pretty proud of myself. So I hope you're doing the same as you take in another episode of NTR. We have a jam-packed show lined up for you today. We are actually going to be continuing our look at The Last Dance, which is the documentary series currently available on Netflix Canada, focusing on Michael Jordan and the 97-98 Chicago Bulls as they embark on their sixth and final championship together as a team. And episodes 7 and 8, which are the episodes that we'll be focusing on this week's episode, are very interesting as they really focus on Michael Jordan and who he was as a person, who he was as a leader, as well as a teammate. And joining me to talk about this in further detail is someone who's very familiar when it comes to fostering leaders and teammates from a Canadian basketball level. He is the CEO of Northpole Hoops, which is an organization that really allows youth who are interested in basketball to really reach the highest levels and obtain scholarship opportunities. It is our good friend, Tariq Sbiet, who will be joining us. He is the CEO of NPH. And we talk about a lot when it comes to the past two episodes of The Last Dance. We touch on who Michael Jordan was as a teammate and what his actions can teach people when it comes to both leadership and teamwork. Jordan's relationship with his father, especially when his father passed away, and just the effect that had on him. The interesting relationship that exists between media and athletes, because that's a polarizing one for sure. And back in the 90s, it was very ruthless. And we also touch on superstition in sports, because at one point Jordan did change his number to 45, and then he went back to 23 because he felt going back to 23 would allow him to play better. So we analyze that a little bit more, and we talk about these two episodes in greater detail. And then we switch gears on New Theory Radio this week. I'm actually going to be joined by music journalist Natalie Harmson, who has written for the likes of Beat Route and Exclaim. And we are talking about Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams was a topic of conversation this week as he put out a very controversial Instagram post that some thought was pretty racist towards the Chinese community, while some felt that he wasn't wrong at all, and it was really just coming from an anger that existed inside of him because he himself is a vegan and he wanted to promote veganism. No one knows, but we really dive deep into what this was all about, and really just the conversation that it started around this anti-Chinese rhetoric that unfortunately has been a lot of focus during this coronavirus pandemic, and situations like this certainly don't help that conversation. And there are some parallels being made with this Bryan Adams situation to the Don Cherry situation around Remembrance Day a few months back, and it's caused quite the debate on social media. So Natalie and I dive deep into whether or not Bryan Adams handled this the right way, whether this will have an impact on his career, and whether this truly exposes an ugly underbelly of racism and xenophobia that's existed in Canada for quite some time. All this and more on this week's episode. So we are going to take a quick commercial break, And then when I come back, I'll be joined by the CEO of Northpole Hoops, Tariq Sbiet, and we are chatting about The Last Dance episodes 7 and 8 here on News Talk, Saga 960 AM.
You are listening to New Theory Radio.
Look, I don't have to do this. I'm only doing it because it is who I am. That's how I played the game. That was my mentality. If you don't want to play that way, don't play that way. Break.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. And we are continuing our look at The Last Dance, which is the documentary series currently available on Netflix here in Canada, profiling Michael Jordan and the 97-98 Chicago Bulls as they head into their 6th championship. And episodes 7 and 8, I would like to say, for this series are very pivotal in trying to understand the mind of Michael Jordan and who he exactly is and what really drives him. And during these episodes, you really get a sense as to the choices that he makes and why he is why he is the best player when it comes to basketball of all time. And if I'm going to be talking about Michael and I'm going to be talking a bit about who he is as a leader and a teammate, it's only right that I bring on our next guest to help me dissect the zeitgeist that is Michael Jordan. And I have joining me, he is the CEO of Northpole Hoops. He is someone who is impact-driven, goal-oriented. He loves building positive relationships, partnerships, and sponsorships. He is currently creating basketball marketing opportunities for various organizations and really driving the Canadian game forward. And he is someone who's truly passionate about the game. And I'm very excited to have him here on New Theory Radio. I have Tariq Sbiet here. Tariq, thanks so much, man, for making time for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nav. It's of all topics, this is it's going to be a fun one to discuss and kind of dive into.
Yeah, and it's funny, you are no stranger to one of our previous guests, someone who's also a mainstay here on Saga 960 AM, our good friend Jason Tom. And I remember just like asking Jason when I interviewed him for this series, I'm like, man, do you know anyone else that I could reach out to? And he recommended you right away. He's like, if you're going to talk Jordan, you got to talk to Tariq because he is obsessed with Michael Jordan.
Yeah, no, Mike has been a person and a figure that me, like millions of people around the world, kind of look up to as the excellence, the bar. I also grew up on probably like during the times where I really was more aware about the game was Kobe Bryant. And so Kobe was, quote unquote, my guy. But Jordan, it was like passing the torch. So I kind of got the back end of Jordan and then lived through the kind of Kobe era. And I mean, those guys are like brothers, the same mentality, cut from the same cloth. So, everything that, and I even, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, when he passed away, I did a post on like, without Kobe Bryant, there is no Northpole Hoops. So like, I would literally not be involved in basketball. I'd be doing something else because he was the one that inspired me to love the game, and he was inspired by Michael Jordan. So it's just it's crazy how it's kind of all connected, and we don't know these people personally, but how emotionally invested we are with their lives and their careers.
Yeah, I agree, man. And the lineage is definitely strong when you think about the fact that during Michael's last run with his Bulls was when Kobe got his start in the league, and just seeing that brother dynamic exist amongst the two, even in the previous episodes, I thought was very fascinating because you always assume that when you have two elite players that are the absolute best and are truly obsessed with the game and are truly obsessed with winning, that there's going to be some type of competitive nature there. especially when it comes to how great Kobe is and just his track record versus Jordan. And, we kind of saw that a little bit with Kobe and LeBron. And, we still see that now when people compare LeBron and Jordan, right? Like there's this little bit of awkwardness that's always there. But it's good to know that, both Kobe and Jordan were pretty tight. And there was that little older brother, younger brother mentality there. And, yeah, no, that's awesome, man, that Kobe inspired, the awesome work that you do and Northpole Hoops, because Northpole Hoops is a fantastic organization. Do you mind just providing a quick background as to the work that you guys do?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're celebrating we're running a 1 decade campaign, celebrating the last 10 years in Canadian basketball for Northpole Hoops. And, in a nutshell, Northpole Hoops is a growth platform. Beyond basketball happens to be the vehicle, but really want to share a growth mindset around the world, across the country. We've been doing a lot across the country via exposure opportunities for Canadian basketball athletes, and now we're kind of pivoting in a way where we can now take that same mentality and help coaches with job opportunities, help appreciate and recognize the great talent that we have coast to coast. Being in a country of just under 40 million in relation to the rest of the world, we're actually pretty tiny as Canadians, and sometimes we tend to think with that mindset versus thinking bigger and seeing bigger opportunities. And with Northpole Hoop, it's really been an amazing ride. Off record, we were just talking about you did some work with Corey Joseph. Mm-hmm. He was actually the first player. Tristan Thompson, that whole class, that was the first group of guys that I actually worked with.
Oh, amazing.
On a media level, doing photo shoots with him and his brother DeVoe Joseph. So it's just been amazing to see the growth of the players, the industry, the coaches, and we're happy to kind of continue to create opportunities for people and service people, appreciate people, and recognize top quality talent.
That's fantastic, man. And to your point, seeing the growth trajectory of the game here in Canada has been amazing. Like you think about the Carter effect, it's totally real. All these generations of Canadian players that we're just seeing rolling out now that are truly owning the game is very heartwarming, man. And again, Canada is becoming a juggernaut within the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And inspiration, right? We talked about that a second ago, about how I was inspired by Kobe Bryant. People have been inspired by Kobe, Michael Jordan, and for me growing up, playing ball my whole kind of started third grade and moved up playing ball my whole life. Yeah. There was an opportunity for exposure. And so whether it's our exposure camps or tournaments or leagues that we run, our digital marketing and our scouting service, how we connect them to college coaches, the common denominator is that exposure and that opportunity. So if you're a kid, right, or a parent, and you're seeing this happen, and you see that, hey, there's an end game to this. This is my pathway, and this is actually, if I do this, this, and this, I could achieve this, this, and this. And that wasn't in existence with us growing up 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago. And so just to be inspired to know that there is a way, there is a chance, and then you pursuing that chance, pursuing that opportunity. That's everything, to be honest with you, in life and basketball. Whether it's an employee of mine that wants to see a growth opportunity, it's like, okay, well, I got to, as a leader, show him a pathway where he could do tangible production to achieve tangible results. So everybody is looking for the next level. Everybody's looking for a pathway, or as one of my partners told me early in the game, a light at the end of the tunnel. Right. And that's kind of basketball, life, business, whatever job that you do, whatever industry. To me, it's all one, to be honest with you. It's all one.
Yeah, I think you put it well, man. I think there is that light at the end of the tunnel that everyone's always trying to achieve. And I think always thinking about that will certainly allow you to stay motivated and stay focused. And, that was a lot of the theme, or that was a lot of the themes that we saw in episodes 7 and 8. Before we jump into some of the aspects or some of the observations, explain to me, during this last dance run that Jordan was on, you mentioned you started playing basketball in grade 3. What is your earliest memory of Michael, and what was there anything during the time when you were growing up that really resonated with you?
The probably biggest memory, because again, it was kind of on the back end, was the later years in the Utah Jazz, where the shot over Russell. Like, that just always replayed in my head for a long time. And it was just like, he hits the shot, he jumps and does the pump, and in the air, it's just like imprinted in my brain, you know, and then the celebration after. So that was kind of like, if you had to kind of put definitively with one moment, that would probably be the moment for me growing up in it, you know what I mean? Or younger days of me growing up in it.
Yeah, and even for me too, like I have no recollection, I'll admit it, because when he had his, you know, when the Bulls went for their first three-peat, I was 3, 4, 5? Like, I was super young.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, like, I don't remember any of that. But I do remember, like, the second three-peat. And again, I love that they touched on the series, the Supersonics, because I remember as a kid having Super Nintendo and doing that matchup in an NBA Jam. Yeah. It was so fun. I remember Gary Payton and Sean Kemp will always take on Pippen and Q Coach. Because I think Jordan was like an unlockable character or something like that. So that'd be the 2-on-2 and the back-to-back series with the Utah Jazz, right? Like, I think I can't wait for them to get into that, because, you know, judging by the hat that I'm wearing, it's no secret that Dennis Rodman was a member of the NWO. So
that's right.
I fondly remember when Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman showed up in WCW and had a bit of a wrestling match during the finals, pretty much, or during after the finals. Like, it was, man, the 90s in general was such an interesting time, and I think this encapsulates it. Let's get right into it, man. Episode 7 was a very very interesting episode. You know, there's a lot that's touched on. A lot of it's really focused around that last championship that Jordan won during the first three-peat. The death of his father and the impact it had on him and his game, and his stint in baseball, which, again, if you ask me, I knew that he went over to baseball, but I had no idea what that run was about. So it was good to see some more context behind that, and how, hey, if the baseball strike didn't take place, we could be looking at a Last Dance documentary about Jordan's baseball run versus the Bulls run. Right. So fascinating stuff. Just to jump right into it, the fact that Jordan decided to take a break when he did, and he decided to play another sport. Would you do you think there could ever be another situation like that in sports today?
Well, it's a great question, because, you know, it's a conversation that has been, many people have had in the conversations I've had about it. You know, everyone has their theories of why, you know, gambling, father, this, that. The great thing is that we're actually able to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And one of the main things was, and he speaks to it, MJ speaks to it, is when you get to a point in your craft where you're so head and shoulders above everybody in the arena that you're no longer motivated. Like, when you win 3 championships in a row, then you go to baseball, then you come back and win 3 more. Like, after you win the 3rd one and you won championships, and then you have the likes of like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, like, calling you the Black Jesus or whatever they refer to him as. Everybody knew he was that dude.
Yep.
And so when you get to that level, whether you're a plumber, whether you're a marketer, whether you're a basketball player, whether you're a dentist, whatever it is that you do in life, when you get to that level where you're the best, you're the GOAT, you've been dubbed the GOAT, and everybody knows it, like, I'm just trying to think about it, like, practically, like, you wake up in the morning, for what reason? Like, you're the best.
Yeah.
Or somebody like Michael Jordan would wake up in the morning. It's not like he's waking up saying, I got to make $1 million, I got to make $100,000. It's like, he's committed and dedicated to the craft, which brought all the millions of dollars into fame and everything else. And you get to a point where you wake up and, man, like, I'm the best. Everybody knows it around me. And as a competitor, like, where do you get the fire, right? You want to be your best self. And it's an interesting conversation because people are motivated differently. Some people are motivated internally. I would say Michael Jordan is motivated. He's an interesting one because he's maybe internal and external, because I would assume that he wants to be the best version of himself every day.
Yeah.
Right? So internal motivation. But then there's the external. Some people, let's look at the competition, look at the next guy or the next girl. What is he or she doing? And they, align with that and then try to be the best. So I feel like he kind of had a combination of both, to be driven by competition externally, but also trying to be the best possible Michael Jordan. So I guess that's my long answer of answering your question of will there be anybody else in that? Well, they'd have to be head and shoulders the best. Like look at this era right now. LeBron James has been the best player in the game for a while now.
Yeah,
right?
for a while. Yeah.
But even LeBron, like there's Kevin Durant, there's always that next guy to push you, right? But it's not like if you ask 100 people at that time, they would all say Michael Jordan, hands down, not even question, no debate, undeniable. With Mike, with Kobe, with Vince Carter, like all these guys, it was still debatable. So it's like it's crazy because there's the whole plus minus equal growth equation. They say, okay, you have a plus, which is your mentor. You have a minus, which is a person that you mentor. And then you have an equal, which is kind of around your realm, which pushes you every single day.
I've never heard that before. That's cool.
Michael Jordan never had an equal. So his growth, I gotta believe this is how it went down. Like, he didn't feel that he can be pushed anymore to maximize his growth. So he's like, let me try something else where it could give me a challenge. I'm not the greatest in baseball, but let me rebuild myself up with, of course, the combination of his father's interest in that. So that is my long answer to your question.
No, but I think it's a fascinating one, man, because, again, I hate to always bring this up, but it's sort of similar to a lot of these UFC fighters that are now going into pro wrestling. And again, majority of the time when a UFC fighter goes into pro wrestling, it's after they've lost a lot. Like, Ronda Rousey is a good example. She was the champion, undefeated, lost 2 fights, decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to get out and try something different.
Right.
So it's so polarizing. And again, we can dive a bit deeper into Michael's mental a little bit and what was going on during that time. But, again, once you've mentally built yourself to be competitive on a daily basis, and after a while you realize, you know what, I won 3 championships. Yeah. Literally, if I retire today, my like reputation's going to speak for itself.
Cemented, yeah.
Let me go try something different. And it wasn't like he went to baseball and he sucked. Like, there was people saying that, hey, if he had chosen to cross the picket line, he could have been like a World Series champion. and I
didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Me neither. I always thought he was bad.
yeah. But he was, from what we watched, is that it seemed that he was improving. He was getting better if he had stayed long enough, of course.
Yeah, and just to take a step back, I think the another interesting part of episode 7 was seeing what led up to his decision to retire the first time. And obviously it had to do a lot with the death of his dad. And another thing that I've just found really disgusting during all of this was the media treatment of someone like an MJ during this time. And obviously when his dad gets murdered, it's around the same time that there's these conversations around a gambling issue and debts that he owes. Yeah. There's people even dropping theories that he's retiring because David Stern suspended him for 18 months but kept him on the DL. Like, all of these different ideas that were just bubbling up because of the media. Do you feel like this was a prime example of just how bad the media can truly be to an athlete? And do you feel like nowadays with social media, it's gotten even worse because fans can now attack players directly?
Yeah, like people talk about, it's like, I've heard players, and I know we're going to discuss the relationship between players and media eventually, but like media, like people constantly say, like, it's in the media, it's the media. Well, it's people. Yeah. Like, people are in the media, fans are in the media. And negativity is it's contagious, but also so is positivity. But it's easier to be negative. It's a lot easier to be negative. So when it comes to Jordan and what we watched there, it was like he's kind of said like they just wanted to tear me down. They seen him up for so long.
Yeah.
So it comes from a place of envy. And once it circulates and once it gets into the media machine, now it's out of control. It doesn't even matter what's right and what's wrong anymore, or what's correct or incorrect, fact or not fact. Take example as this coronavirus we're going through, right? There's all sorts of theories and everything else. No, I'm not even going to speak on that or on the opinion of what it is, but it's more about like fear will kill you before coronavirus will kill you. There's 100%. So much fear and anxiety in the environment globally, right, in the society, and it's in the media, whether you're watching CNN or whatever, Fox or Canadian, CBC, whatever it might be, like that energy that's put out there can be contagious. And I think what happened with Jordan, the energy that they put out there on him with the book first and then within the media, people taking shots, it's like, that's people for you in a nutshell. Like that's society, that's human nature, on full display.
Yeah, especially the part where there was, this was really time stamped for me when they talked about people saying that he had a role in his dad's death. Yeah, and I was just thinking that there was like big time publications that were saying that. And you think about now, you'd probably see, there's obviously a lot of fake news online. So you'd probably see some of that show up on a gossip website or something that's, not verified. Yeah. But it's just crazy that was printed somewhere because, now when you look at the media, anything that shows up in a newspaper, you right away assume, okay, whoever is putting this news out there, that it's printed on a piece of paper, it means that there has to be some type of validity behind it. And that was very scary. And even for someone that's, in the media, one of my biggest fears is jumping to conclusions. And it's funny as I say that with my show being called New Theory Radio, but still like having that ability that if I was to jump to a conclusion that I have all the facts versus trying to piece everything together. So how would you describe the relationship between the media and basketball players? You obviously work with a bunch of players and as well as coaches that are up and coming, that are looking for opportunities, that are looking for sponsorships, endorsements. What is some of the feedback or some of the conversation that currently exists when you're embarking in some of these meetings that are very sort of media focused?
Yeah, I did want to, before I jump into that answer, I did want to touch kind of on the back end of what you said about, like I can only imagine how betrayed Jordan felt in that moment. You're trying to pursue excellence, and then you get thrown under the bus, and it becomes a personal thing with your father. So that point right there segues into your question about trust, right? Trust in the media. We know that Michael Jordan, a trusted member of the media, he had a lot of respect. It was his friend, was Ahmad Rashad, right? And was able to help him, and they grew their career together, built on a foundation of trust. And I think for players, I've been in the chair of like the media member of whether writing a story or covering the Raptors for Slam magazine back in the day for a year and a half. So I've been in the media chair, but then I've also been as the like observer working with an athlete in terms of what's going through their minds. And players constantly feel, because it's business, right? And they take it personally, something that is said. Let's say if it's an article that's about the athlete and something he has to improve on, something that the athlete has to improve on. Well, it's one thing when you're having that growth talk, coach to player, but it's another thing is when your career is out there in the open to be poked at, right? And there's levels to it, right? You have your high school athlete, you have your college athlete, and as you climb the ladder as a pro and NBA player or professional player, it magnifies and magnifies. So if you don't understand the game and you don't understand what's to come, you're left in a situation where you're like, you're getting almost into depression because why are these people doing this to me? Mm-hmm. You know, and I can give you just a quick example, like, you know, R.J. Barrett with the New York Knicks, like he is fortunate to have, you know, be in a situation where his father played pro basketball at a high level, and his godfather is a legend in Steve Nash. Yeah. So they were able to prepare him for what's to come in the media and how to be prepared to how to handle the media, how to control the room, if you will. And there's so much value to that. You know, and that's kind of a role that I play on our Northpole team plays. Amazing. To help mentor them, to prepare them for what's to come. Because if they don't know how to handle it, their careers have and will implode if they don't handle it correctly.
Yeah, no, exactly, man. And I definitely agree with you. I think having that type of mentorship early on will definitely prepare you because, again, man, I think about being a Toronto Raptors fan, and whenever Lowry has a bad game, social media is on him like a hawk. Like, even recently, like, there's been a lot of conversation around Kyle Lowry, mainly appreciation on social media. But then you have these snarky comments about how he's overrated or how this, how that. And again, you start to think about, from a mental health standpoint, I'm glad you have players like Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan over the past few years that have opened up that conversation. But then you really start to think about how, as a player and with all this attention on you, you need to have thick skin and you need to just roll with the punches. Speaking of thick skin and just rolling with the punches, how are you perceiving Scottie Pippen throughout this entire documentary? Because, like, again, we saw in the beginning there was that part that he obviously sat out the season because he was getting underpaid. Then I thought in these episodes they did a great job in sort of talking about how when Jordan left, he decided to take more ownership. He looked at it as an opportunity to grow, and he became the player. But then that one part where he sits out the last sort of play of the game and allows a Q coach to get the shot because I guess he wanted to play. He just seems like he's forever indebted to that situation, and that's something that he totally regrets. And again, someone that's again, maybe I'm being biased. Before this documentary, I looked at Scottie Pippen as being, you know, a very respectable player, like a super, nice guy. But then I feel like this documentary has shown me a different side of him, and it's quite fascinating to see that. But how would you just what's your thoughts on Scottie and how he's been perceived so far?
Underappreciated. Going into the doc, that's what I felt. Watching the doc, it just kind of reinforces that. But when an individual is underappreciated, any individual, they tend to build some selfishness, right? Man, if you don't value me, and let's say in the work, I always go back to the work field. Like, if you don't value me, then I'm going to start doing things that's for me. It's not for the company or for the team, right? And I think Scottie Pippen went through that his entire career practically. Like, how can you? Let's go to Kobe and Shaq. How can you feel appreciated if, as good, as talented and as great as you are as a Kobe Bryant, you'll always be in the shadow of someone else? Yeah, Pippen was in the shadow of greatness, and he was great in his own right, levels to it. But he's a top 50 player of all time. Let's not get that twisted. So when you feel underappreciated, there's some selfishness starts to be built up over years, and then being underpaid, like, it was crazy, the disparity. Yeah. Now, it was a decision that he made, and we learned through the management and whatnot. But, I think that moment, there was a couple moments that the documentary showed of him making selfish moves. That doesn't mean he's a selfish person, because many would argue that he's the opposite of that. Like, that's not who Scottie Pippen is. And I kind of just watched a few interviews with the NBA guys, and they were saying how Scottie doesn't appreciate how he's being presented in the public eye, because it takes them back to the mistake he made like 20 years ago, right? Yeah. And that's a terrible feeling. Like, you make a mistake, and now you have to be crucified for it like 20 years later. No, man. So, but it's a documentary. It's raw and it's real. It's what happened. He's not proud of it. I don't think that's who he is and who he showed himself to be to teammates and whatnot, because all the teammates have great things to say, especially Michael Jordan. His Hall of Fame speech. First person he recognized, Scottie Pippen.
Yeah.
You know what
Exactly.
I mean? So I respect that about Jordan, because he knows how underappreciated Scottie was. So like he always has in front of mind. So it's a tough spot for Scottie to be in, but it's pretty natural, human nature for somebody to feel underappreciated and then basically develop some selfishness around that.
New Theory Radio.
It's funny because you talk about the regret that he had sort of 20 years later. Very similar to, I guess, the previous episodes when they talked about Isaiah Thomas and just the fact that there is a little bit of pent-up regret.
Yeah,
with not shaking, Michael's hand after they lost the conference finals, and I believe in 91 or 92. But I do find that to be the most fascinating aspect of this entire series is just, in hindsight, hearing about how these players feel about their actions.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great segue to talk about Jordan. And one of the things that you and I were talking about before we started recording was that clip that's now going viral of Jordan talking about his expectation of his team and how he would never ask someone to do something that he couldn't do. And just the way that people felt, hey, like, I can't work with Jordan or he's too intense, and what drove that intensity. And that lasting scene where he talks about it and he breaks down and he asks for a break and they just kind of end episode 7 on that note. Very, very powerful stuff, man. Like it's like you always look at Michael Jordan as being this mythical figure, but I think that part really humanized him, right? It really humanized him as a person and who he is. And it was something that you and I talked about before recording about how this is very relatable to business too, like very relatable to just everyday life. Because when you are a high performer and when people around you don't share that same mentality, it's very easy to lash out, or it's very easy to have an expectation that unfortunately some people are just not going to meet. What was your thoughts on that? Because that clip has been going viral and it's being shared on social quite a bit.
Yeah, powerful.
Yeah,
life personified, right there. He is raw, he's real, he's authentic about how he felt, and a couple of statements that he made about if you feel this way, you've never won before.
Yeah,
like that's a winner. Mm-hmm. Telling someone that hasn't won before, this is what it is, right? We talked about off record, like the process. And I say all the time, the process is undefeated, going from A to Z. If Z is the championship of the process and the actual Larry O'Brien, lifting Larry O'Brien, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z is the process of the failure, like the struggle and the doubt, creation of doubt, and the getting past that in life. And a lot of people, once they get that struggle, they give up. They don't get past over the hump, because once they get over that hump, is where championships are, right? It's you gotta have some type of you gotta go up against some form of pressure in your life and get over it in order to create a level of understanding and a level of fortitude to get through anything in life. And when I watch that, I've watched it over and over again. It's like something I watch every day. I've watched it at least 20 times. Of those 20 times, 10 of them were like in a row. Because every time I watched it, it was like therapeutic. It was like, yes, I know exactly how he feels.
Someone understands me.
yeah, I felt that. And honestly, I feel that anybody that's in a leadership position in whatever that they do in life feels that and appreciates that. Because when you're, all you care about is the win, right? And in that process, you want and you're working in team dynamics and a team environment. You saw, I put that question out to my team. We have a group I sent it out to get what does everyone think about that? Why was he so emotional? Why was he breaking down at the end? And one of my guys, Joe, he's like, because of how much he was quote unquote crucified over the years, and all he wanted to do was win. All he wanted to do was be great. And everything that people put Michael Jordan on a pedestal for is the same thing that they tear him down for in the process of getting to that. It's like we said, process, right? Before Z, they would crucify him all the way up till Z. Yeah. But then he gets to Z, and then they praise him.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's actually amazing. And now, like, looking at it at a practical level, whether it's yourself as a marketer or as a radio host, or myself as a business owner and an executive in what I do, like, people will doubt you in what you have in every single day. People will doubt you, and you kind of have to prove yourself every single day through action, right? Action is the best form of leadership, and that's what I took away from, like, what he was saying. He said, I never asked anybody on my team to do something I haven't done. That's actions. His actions led, and that's why I just, like, man, like, like I'm all in, MJ. I will do whatever you did, and the pathway that I will follow that pathway, because it's a process, man. And whether it's Jay-Z or Michael Jordan or Bill Gates, whoever it is that's in the world that has achieved, Kevin Hart. I was at Mike Tyson. There's ups and downs. Like, I was just watching a Kevin Hart interview with Joe Rogan before this, and a Mike Tyson. And I was just like, you see the parallels, right? Like, it's always the same thing over and over on the road to success.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Kevin Hart, because I remember watching his Netflix documentary, and again, I was used to seeing funny guy Kevin Hart doing cracking jokes. But then the Netflix documentary was fascinating, because then you saw the leadership, the business side, the stuff that he's doing on the regular, like the fact he probably sleeps for 4 hours because he's just grinding, and how he has that level of intensity. And again, I'm a big Jay-Z fan, so I'm glad you brought up Jay-Z. Like nice. I think this is a common trait amongst big time leaders. Like, I would even say, hey, maybe Drake has the same thing, right? Yep. Like, all these people that have seen success and that have teams around them. Yeah. It's almost like they don't know how to operate any other way. It's like they need, like, once you hit a certain level, you need to continue to hit that level. Like being subpar is not good enough. No, like my MJ said, winning has a price, leadership has a price. Yeah. And you get to that high certain echelon, and then guess what? There's another level to get to. And there will always be another level to get to. Even if whether you're Kevin Hart, you're me, you're you, whoever you are, there's always another level to get to. And if you don't have something every single morning when you wake up that you're striving for, then you're not growing. No, exactly. And if you're not growing, you're dying. Yeah. You're either growing or you're dying, or you're stagnant, or you're evolving, right? So again, it's just it's very fascinating when you watch that documentary, and the fact that that's what it ended on when he said cut. That's how that episode ended. I was like, I'm officially hooked. I can't wait for next. Like, it was genius. It was genius production. It was genius marketing. Oh man, it was so real. So I was like, I'm excited. I've been obviously watching every episode, but this one right here, I'm like looking forward to it. Like, otherwise I would watch them. Like, let's say if it come out on Sunday, I'd watch them Tuesday or Wednesday. Like, I want to watch this one, like, because you know how in Canada, it's like they play it at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. You're going to stay up? I think I might have to stay up. Hey, Monday's a holiday, so... is it? Yeah. Man, who knows? Is it Monday? Is it Friday? You don't know anymore. It's just all blended into one day. Life is one day right now. I was going to say, the fact that clip is going around social media, I feel like it might be the new clip. You know how there's that one scene in Rocky Balboa? Where it's like, it's not, that's how winning is done. That part. Yes. I feel like everyone loves that Sylvester Stallone Rocky Balboa speech, but it's also kind of rooted in the fact that it was in that movie. But I almost see this Michael Jordan clip being in that same vein. Like, I think people are going to refer to it. Legendary. And I remember, again, I'm also a big Kanye West fan, and he's obviously gone through ebbs and flows, but I remember there was like a very motivational package that someone made online with all of his quotes from his interviews, and it's fascinating because I remember people responding to it. It was a few years back, and they're like, I thought Kanye was over the top, but when you actually hear everything in one video. It's just crazy to see how, he's just motivates you. Like he just wants to get you going. And I think it's just so important. And I found that to be fascinating. Another part that's fascinating about Jordan is his relationship with other players, as well as the issues that he would have. Sorry, my connection was off. It's good. The relationship he had with other players. I didn't realize that him and Steve Kerr had beef for a little bit. Yeah. It was also interesting to see his relationship with is it Armstrong?
No, it was Steve Burrell.
Yeah, Steve Burrell. Yeah. Burrell. And then also when he would go against other players from other teams, right? I think the Gary Payton dynamic was interesting on the Supersonics. His rivalry with the Hornets. Like, here's a guy that just would not let anyone get past him. And then when it came to his team members, when it came to people he'd be opposing, as an aspiring athlete, what would you recommend? Let me actually rephrase that. As someone who speaks to athletes very early on in their careers, what would you recommend that they take away from some of Jordan's traits versus what would you recommend that they maybe stray away from?
Well, the leadership, the consistent work, like his work ethic and his desire every day to be great and not being mediocre, right? Like, try to strive to be the best that you can be. It might not be that let's say if you're a 5'9" point guard, like myself, I was a 5'9" point guard. Doesn't mean I'm making the NBA per se. Your best might not be being an NBA player. It might be being a great lawyer. It might be a great referee, a great scorekeeper, a great, whatever, business owner, whatever it might be. And that's something that anyone can relate to in their craft, because basketball is the vehicle. But even like you look at these pros that finish their pro careers and you see the difference between a majority of them just lost in life. And then you see the others like a Kobe Bryant who found another passion, right? So you got to find your passion. Michael Jordan was passionate about the game. He loved the game. He loved basketball. And I know a lot of kids, they don't love the game or they don't approach it like they love the game. They love the idea of being great.
Yeah.
They aren't pursuing greatness. They love the interview or the social media or the offer, the college offer. They don't appreciate the full process and the day-to-day. I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying some. Like the difference between the upper echelon and the rest, right? And so I would kind of say, to take away those things, the passion, the love for the game, the appreciation of the opportunity, and I would say if something to stray away from, I mean, damn. Look. He punches Steve Kerr, okay? A basketball team is a brotherhood or sisterhood. It's a family environment. In family, you have conflict, but you get through it, and hey, me and my brother, Elias, who's my partner, we are like this. Yin and the yang all day. Ask anybody that knows Northpole hoops or basketball, us in our lives, constant conflict. But guess what? We get through it. Right, we're different personalities, different perspectives, but we get through it, and that conflict makes us stronger. It makes us tougher and get through things. And so, if you look at like Steve Kerr said it after he got punched, that was the huge growth spurt for him individually because it showed Michael Jordan that I ain't going to be pushed around. I'm going to stand up for myself, and therefore it created a trust. Right now, Michael Jordan looks at it as the leader. I can go to battle with this guy. I can depend on that. Surely enough, he hits the big three. He hits multiple big threes in his career to help Chicago Bulls win championships. So, I was like, I thought about, should I say to you, the takeaway is like, don't fight your teammates. Obviously, don't fight your teammates. Don't go in like, I want to start a fight with this guy. but conflict is an important part of growth and in practice. And I've talked to a recent player that I'm mentoring right now. He's an NBA prospect, and he was going into this upcoming season. He's in college. He's projected a first-round draft pick. And
Nice.
I've been going through the mentorship process, I'm asking him, like, how is practice? Have you got into any fights? Has anyone got into any fights in your whole team? He's like, no, it's pretty cool. It's pretty chill. I'm like, well, that's a problem, because there should be conflict. You should be checking your teammate. If you want to be great, you got to be challenging your teammate, and your teammate got to be challenging you to a point where it's like, man, like there's an internal competitive spirit internally, so that once you go out there and try to pursue championships as a team, my guy Kyle Julius says, he's a world-class trainer and basketball coach. Practice hard, game easy. You got to go through hard environments, hard, tough practices, so that in the back end, which is the games, ain't nothing you haven't seen before or felt before.
And you know what? It's great because there are times where if you just go about the game and you're happy-go-lucky and you're like, hey, we're all in this together, and there's that sort of happy teammate dynamic, there could be things that are maybe bothering you that you keep inside, that one day when you decide to address them because you were pushed to the absolute edge, it would probably make the situation a lot worse versus, to your point, maybe calling it head on, like early or
addressing it. But a lot of people don't want to go through the tough conversations or the tough moments, right? So it becomes like you add it on to your conscious, like over time. So it's just conflict is part of that growth process, right? Let's call it FGHIJK, like a part of that alphabetical process to get to the end. Like, you got to do it. It has to be done. So, obviously you're not going in there with the intention to fight. You're going with the intention to be great at your craft. And in that process, you're gonna get into conflict in the office, in the work field, in the basketball court. It's all the same.
And you know what, man? I think it was a great like to all this. It was definitely evident that the way he operated, sure, it rubbed people maybe the wrong way on the team, but it made everybody better. Like, everybody got better. There wasn't anyone on there that was saying, hey, Jordan's continually pushing me, but he's only getting like 10 points a game. Like, there was a reasoning behind the science. There was this notion. And again, Phil Jackson even talked about getting having to check Michael himself a couple times because he would call when it would get out of hand. Yeah. But you mentioned Steve Kerr. I saw a Steve Kerr highlight package on social media this week. And again, I like for me, I probably didn't know who Steve Kerr really was until he started managing the Golden State. And then I realized this guy was on the Bulls. I totally forgot. Yeah. And he was an awesome player. Like, he was in the clutch a couple of times. He was fantastic when it came to the triangle offense. And it leads you to believe that maybe that little scuffle he had with Jordan did turn the other, did allow him to become better.
It builds toughness, and in any team environment, whether it's basketball work field, like, you have 2, maybe 3 maximum stars. Everybody else is a role player, right? Mm-hmm. And what Steve Kerr was an elite level role player, right? Jordan, Pippen, say Rodman, you can say, were the stars. Paxson, Kerr, Cartwright, so on and so forth. The list goes on. Elite level Horace Grant, elite level role players, and everybody, you become to understand who you are and what your skill set and how you can do it at the highest level. That's what happens at the highest levels, meaning the NBA or at the highest levels of the work field. Like, you got to be elite at this thing because not everyone's going to be a star. And once you understand, and like a guy like Steve Kerr and these guys, they understand that and they embrace it. And then that's part of the process. Like, you got to define your role, and then you got to embrace your role, right? Yeah. And once you do that, then you can excel instead of trying to be a star. Because not everyone's blessed with certain ability, whether it be leadership, whether it be natural talent, right? But hey, Steve Kerr, John Paxson, they can really shoot the 3-ball. And the Chicago Bulls need a 3-point shooter. The Chicago Bulls need Dennis Rodman to be an animal on the boards. Yeah. You're not going to get points, but you're going to eat up all the boards. So you got Jordan and Pippen. So it's elite level role players, man. Underrated and underappreciated as well.
Yeah, no, totally, man. And I think learning how to play your position, regardless of what it is, I think is crucial. And just to kind of close this one out, I wanted to talk to you quickly about superstition in sports. We saw a good example when Jordan came back. He was number 45, and then he reverted back to 23, and all of a sudden he magically had a better game than because he switched the jersey number. What's your theory on that? Do you think that actually exists? Do you think that's all folklore, or do you think there's a science behind, or there's like a mental science behind a lot of these minor changes that maybe players go through that may not work out for them?
I think it is what you want it to be as a player, right? Like when Jordan changed it, just like when Kobe changed it from 8 to 24, it signified in their minds a fresh start. But Jordan changed it back. After, right, quit back to 23, it was just something that he was comfortable with. I don't really think it's like he could have continued to play with 45 and performed at a high level, no doubt, but it's like you create what you want, right? If you're Jordan or if you're Kobe, it's just more comfort, there definitely is a mental connection to it, right? Like for Kobe, it was like he was going through a lot of his excuse me, French. He was going through a lot. No rate here, like R-rated or whatever. Kobe went through a lot of stuff with the case, right, with the girl and on his wife and all of that. So for him, like he wants to move forward to another world, a new chapter. He stays with 24 and becomes the Black Mamba. Right, that's where he created, and he talked about this. He created a new character. That's all mental. And if you want to say it, like I wouldn't word it as superstition. I would word it as psychology of sports and how you can do different things to help you perform at a high level. Kobe created the Black Mamba and created a character he did that to maintain balance. So he could be a killer, the Black Mamba on the basketball floor, but he could go and be dad, Kobe Bryant, or the husband off the floor. And there's that clear separation. He can't go and be the Black Mamba in the household. Like that's, I could be trouble.
But yeah, I thought that was it was such a fascinating look at when a player decides to make a minor change. How again, we go back to the media conversation. The media was making fun of him, saying, "Hey, 45 doesn't shoot like 23," and I guess it was very I've been comparing Michael Jordan because this was how I perceived him when I was a kid. I've been comparing him to that of a superhero because I think as a kid, when you're young, below 10 years old, you see Michael Jordan everywhere. He's in the seeing Michael Jordan in Space Jam with like a Bugs Bunny. When you're a kid, you're like, oh my God, Michael Jordan is just like larger than life figure. So it was kind of hilarious how it's almost like the superhero needs to revert back to an old power to beat the villain. And that was the notion. And even again, we saw it that the Orlando Magic definitely had their number, and again, another great sort of comeback story when you think about how Jordan used that entire summer to get back into basketball shape, and that led to his fourth championship. And just on that, I love the storytelling in sports and the fact that for that fourth championship, and I always remember this because this was one of my earliest basketball memories as a kid, seeing that game with my family, that scene where he wins the Larry O.B. on Father's Day and crying on the ground like that. That's such an iconic sports moment, but it's so poetic considering everything that led up to that. Yeah. And again, this is kind of an open conversation, but I love when sports are able to come full circle like that. Like for me, again, we saw it last week with the anniversary of the shot, right, with Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi, just things that just fall in place that allow sports to feel almost like a fairy tale versus something that's real. I don't know. That's just, if you want to add anything to that, feel free. I just wanted to share that.
No, for sure. I mean, I think you could view it as a fairy tale, or you could also view it as like life. Like it's a microcosm of life, right? Like the a certain NBA playoff series or a certain season or a career of a player like a Michael Jordan or whoever, like they represent who you are and what you're about. Like I know people that were big Vince Carter guys. Like during the whole Vince Carter Kobe thing, like Kobe spoke to me, Vince spoke to someone else, Jordan spoke to someone else, Iverson spoke to someone else. So it was like you become a part of the story in your own mind. You become a part of their career and their story because, yes, in a way, it's like you're playing them in your world. You know what I mean? In your fairy tale world. But it's just interesting being in the industry and you see how they're like real people. You know, they're not these. You know, the fame doesn't change the fact that you're a human. Right, and they got to deal with the same stuff that we got to deal with, just in a different way. So, the storytelling. You know, storytelling, as you know, marketing is storytelling, and to be able to tell a story every day. In other words, to create your. I kind of live by the kind of terminology of like create your reality, because every single day, if you live in or you operate with a mentality of creation, which is on one side, and fear being on the other side, like fear will kill you, right? Creation will keep you going and keeping you excited about the next thing. So when it comes to storytelling in sports, it's an amazing thing when you can create impact, you can generate impact through telling a story that connects emotionally with an audience. And then from a marketing perspective, business perspective, leveraging that into selling a product, right? What Jordan did for Nike, I mean, he took it to a whole other shot.
Revolutionized it.
Right? or what We the North did for the Raptors, the campaign, that was one of the best campaigns ever, right? Yeah. What that generated in terms of revenue, in terms of job opportunity, in terms of pride, taking pride as a Canadian, right? We remember saying, we the North. Yeah, that's right. We are the North. versus in the past,
self-acknowledgement, man.
Versus in the past, it was being from the North was something that was used against us from the Americans, right? Like, oh, it's so cold. They live in igloos. Like, wait a minute. Last I checked in Toronto, it's the same temperature as New York or Michigan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's no difference.
It was that marketing play, though, that changed the whole ideology for Canadians to say, yeah, we are the North. We love it, you know? So storytelling is unreal.
Yeah, man. Dude, we're heading into the last 2 episodes. What are you looking most forward to the most? Looks like you're going to be staying up till 3 a.m. to watch them. So what's Tariq mostly interested in as we close this series out?
I'm interested in the lessons, like the last couple episodes, particularly as we were just been talking about heavily on the leadership side and the pursuit to greatness. I'm interested to see what lessons they're going to be able to add to close it all out, right? Because that's something that, in the large picture, what people are going to remember, kind of how it closed out. We obviously know he won 6 titles and they won that championship, but it's those stories that we didn't know about that they're doing a great job of kind of illustrating, and then taking away like the lessons from that, especially like during a time where it's a strange time going through the coronavirus situation. And people are really like utilizing this content to help them in their lives. So depending on what you can take away from it, if it's inspiration, if it's a lesson to help you understand that, hey, like you're on the right path, or hey, it's either you're going to take that you're on the right path and keep going, or you're going to be like, man, I got to get like Jordan, like be like Mike again, you know? So either way, it's in my opinion, the lessons that you take, it could be a real good growth opportunity for that individual, whoever that might be watching it, including myself, like for sure. I'm definitely excited to kind of see kind of how it closes out.
Yeah, we're definitely in the age right now, the fact that we're all cooped up inside, where I know a lot of people like yourself and with me is we're trying to do our best to stay mentally active. We're trying to learn. We're trying to take in as much as we can, because once we get into normal, when who knows when that's going to happen, but once we start getting back into normal, it might be go for a lot of people, because people are going to try to make up for lost time. So right now, to your point, is the perfect time to take in a lot of lessons, take in a lot of experience. And again, I think we touched on it a lot during this episode, man. I think there was a lot that we both took out of Michael Jordan's leadership and the way he handled, adversity and even just teamwork throughout all of this. That, to your point, I'm looking forward to the exact same thing. I'm looking forward to seeing how they talk about this last season with the Bulls. I'd be interested in seeing if they even touch on a little bit towards the end regarding him playing for the Wizards or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they will, but it'd be kind of cool to sort of see if they would touch on that, or maybe that's a whole other documentary. Maybe that's the... And
then they get into his executive world, and that's a whole other documentary.
Yeah, that's... Oh, man. And again, I think with Michael Jordan, I'd love to see him as an exec now, like, managing the Hornets, right? And or even just getting into his mindset as to why he decided, hey, I need to come back and play for the Wizards, because I think there's a lot of speculation around that too. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they close this one out. I'm looking forward to hearing more stories kind of heading into their 5th championship. I'm also, again, me whacking the hat. I can't wait to see how they address Dennis Rodman in his wrestling career. And I'm going to be sad, man. I'm going to be sad when this is all over, because I'm in love with this series, and I think it was a total home run.
Yeah, no doubt. It's it would be cool to see kind of if they ever did it, the executive portion, because it shows the failure side of quote unquote failure of Michael Jordan, right? Because Jordan won 6 titles as a player, but how is he reacting now? Because and he's in a different type of leadership now, right?
He is.
So it's a test to his leadership, being an owner of a company, owner of a franchise. And he says it in some interviews, like, it's way harder because he can't control the outcome. Whereas as a player, he could control the outcome. So.
Oh, man. Even with you saying that, I'm already like, man, I want to see it.
yeah. Crazy. Yeah, no, it's all learning. It's all learning. And just my last note on this would just be like, I've approached this whole Corona situation with the mindset of take what the defense gives you, but always keep the ball moving. Yeah, exactly. And you might not be working right now. Like, you might not be, whatever job that you're doing, you're out of work, and you're hoping on the support of the government and whatnot from a financial standpoint. But just because you're not working doesn't mean you can't focus on other aspects of your life to keep going. Like, if you stop, this is when you fall behind, right? Like, exactly. You gotta, like you said, keep the mental active, keep the ball moving, whether it's working out, which I got to do more of, or
me too,
or just trying to improve and learn new things on YouTube, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of opportunity to grow right now, and I know a lot of people don't see it that way, but I wish a lot more people would, instead of living in the fear. So I guess that would be what I would end the note on.
Awesome, man. Tariq, this was awesome, man. Thanks so much for joining us here on New Theory Radio. You're obviously doing a lot right now. You're keeping everything moving when it comes to Northpole hoops. But if anybody wants to connect with Tariq Sbiet, what's the best way?
Yeah, so social media, on Twitter, it's Tariq_NPH. On Instagram, it's Tariq_Sbiet, Sbiet. Those are probably the 2 key ways. And then, of course, Northpole Hoops, northpolehoops.com. That's where you get your basketball fix in terms of Canadian basketball. And now we're really kind of stepping into the global space, which we're very excited about, to create a kind of positive global impact around the world. And, that's the big picture of what we're doing. So yeah, hopefully we can connect with your fans and your audience on there as well.
Amazing, yeah, man. And again, I really appreciate you joining us. And enjoy the last 2 episodes. I know I'll be watching, and we'll obviously be talking about it next week. But yeah, shout outs to you and the Northpole Hoops team and Jason for connecting us. And we are going to take a quick commercial break here on New Theory Radio, and we'll be right back after this brief commercial. And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. One of the big stories from this week is legendary Canadian artist Bryan Adams and his super controversial Instagram post where he pretty much went against the wet markets. Some people are claiming that the post itself was very racial in its actual tone, while Bryan has not only come back and apologized because of it, he actually stated that it was more so coming from a perspective of a vegan. And now we are embarking on quite the debate on whether Bryan Adams, number one, should be canceled, or number two, if this was actually racially driven and doesn't help the current xenophobic situation that we're in when it comes to the coronavirus and it being connected to the Asian demographic. And joining me to talk about this in further detail, I have someone who is quite the music writer. She has written for the likes of Exclaim, as well as currently for Beat Route. And she's also done some work with Today's Parent, and I'm very excited to have her here on the show. It is Natalie Harmson here on New Theory Radio. Natalie, thanks so much for making the time.
Hi, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you know what? It's been a tumultuous week, I must say. A lot of the vibes that I'm getting when it comes to this Bryan Adams story is very reminiscent to the Don Cherry situation a few months back when it came to his discomfort around people not wearing poppies. And as a music writer, what was your first perception to this situation when this Instagram post came out?
Honestly, sometimes when celebrities do things like this, I'm like, just focus on what you're supposed to be doing. You're a musician, stick to music. You don't need to be commenting on stuff like this. It's just not necessary. Like, what he said was so inflammatory, and with the uptick in anti-Asian hate crimes happening right now, stuff like this just incites people and paves the way for more racist rhetoric to go around. And I really didn't think it was appropriate.
I agree wholeheartedly, and it really sucked that it came from Bryan Adams, because I feel like Bryan Adams was so beloved. Don Cherry has his haters, right? We knew that even before. This was a guy that was overly controversial, and there's people that were petitioning to get him off Hockey Night in Canada for years before that entire situation took place. Yeah. Bryan Adams, most recently, wasn't he on that special that all those Canadian artists did where they were trying to pay tribute to the workers on the front line and raise money for the food banks? And all of a sudden, dude just decides to have a tirade on Instagram and assumes everything's fine.
Oh, absolutely. The thing with Bryan Adams is the man has received Grammy Awards. He's been nominated for Academy Awards for his recording work. He's been given the Order of Canada. So nothing that he really says or does is going to have any impact, because it's not like you can just come along and take those things away. So it's really unfortunate what he said, but in the long run, don't think it's going to have any sort of major impact on his career, because unfortunately, a lot of what we've been seeing is that people are agreeing with what he said, which is really upsetting.
Yeah, and that's one of the points I wanted to talk to you about, is this continued emergence around this ugly underbelly of racism that exists in Canada. And I think the Don Cherry situation was one where we saw a lot of that. And we're seeing a lot of it now, where even Bryan Adams himself has gone out and said, hey, I wasn't trying to be racist. I apologize for the crudeness of my comments. I was really speaking on behalf of being a hardcore vegan and how I feel about these markets in general. But if you go on Twitter and you look, when Bryan Adams was trending, there was a lot of people that were continuing to egg that anti-Asian rhetoric out there and praising Bryan Adams for speaking out, which to me, I was totally confused by.
Oh, absolutely. So many people are agreeing with him, and they're saying he's being brave and he's being courageous for speaking out. And I'm like, what do you mean? He already had a giant platform anyway. The fact that he has that power and that following, for him to say something like that is just absolutely outrageous, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you know what? It doesn't help that this week, that one viral clip of Trump talking to an Asian reporter during one of his press conferences, telling her to go ask China and having a little bit of that snarky tone to it didn't help. And, again, it wasn't one of those things. And again, I think what also is quite disheartening about the situation is, as much as people are sticking up for Bryan Adams, the harsh reality is that this is an individual who is, he is Caucasian. He's an older male. Mm-hmm. And despite whatever he tried to put out there being taken out of context, it doesn't help change that narrative of just the ignorance that exists when it comes to being a person of color.
Yeah. Like he as a white man doesn't get to determine what is racist and what is not. Like, it's not his call to make at all.
Has this ruined Bryan Adams' music for you?
I mean, to be honest, I only really know his hit singles. But I just don't think I'm going to be able to listen to Run to You the same as I could before, which is pretty annoying and upsetting. But I think because Bryan Adams is a boomer, right? So a lot of his fan base are people that, grew up in a time where it was more socially acceptable. And I say socially acceptable for Caucasian people. It's never socially acceptable for people of color to hear these kinds of statements, but it's more accepted for people to just come out and say things like this. And the fact that he's done it and is still going to go on and have a great career, like next week, people won't even remember that he said this, and people will still continue to go see him in concert when concerts become a thing again. And they'll still be praising him on social media as they have been throughout this entire thing. So,
and that is the part that's the most unfortunate about this entire situation, is the fact that, number one, people do have small attention spans. So again, to your point, even we're guilty of that here on the show too, where I doubt this will come up next week because we just move so fast. And especially during this current quarantine that we're in, we're just quick to move on because we want to move on. We don't want to stay in the same situation because, there's a hope of us eventually moving on from this quarantine. But it's fascinating because I don't think that we'll get any concrete learnings. Like, I don't know if there's anything that's going to be rectified. Like, if you ask me, and this is going to sound horrible, but I feel like we're going to be prone to another situation like this. Like, I think it's going to happen, and it's going to be another topic on my show, and we're going to talk about it, but nothing drastically is going to take place to really change the narrative. Now, for example, you think about Don Cherry, they obviously took him off the air, but dude still has a podcast, still has a loyal following. Like, it's not like he's completely canceled. And I like the fact that you mentioned when it comes to Bryan Adams, when he goes on tour next year, guaranteed they're going to be sold out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like, the thing with Don Cherry is people are never going to stop supporting him. Like, those who have liked him from the start have always shared those same beliefs and viewpoints as him. So him doing and saying something like that isn't going to change their minds in any way. And the same thing for Bryan Adams. Like, him trying to paint the whole thing as a vegan issue when it's clearly not, because okay, let me backtrack for a minute. So him trying to say this whole thing was because he's vegan and this was upsetting to him. Well, why aren't you just talking about people in large who eat meat? Because people all over the world are meat eaters and not vegans, and they eat byproducts. And specifically when you're talking about, greedy, fat-eating people, it's like we know exactly where you're talking about here. You're singling out one specific group of people, and that group of people is racialized. So I don't really understand how he can kind of try to backtrack and say, oh no, this is me being upset as a vegan, when it's like, you're talking about the virus. You're talking about two different things here. So
yeah, and it also goes to show that with his reasoning, he probably hates the St. Lawrence market.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
But to your point, like, I feel bad for vegans because vegans are being pushed right into this as, again, he's using it as a scapegoat, right? And again, no pun intended, because vegans don't eat goat. But he's told, like, to me, it's like it's a deflecting strategy. It's one of those situations where you're using everyone knows what you're thinking, but you're using another thing instead to deflect, because you're trying to make it seem like it's something when it's actually not. Like that's not that's what really sucked in this situation is seeing someone who's an institution like Bryan Adams use veganism as a scapegoat to try to define his actions. I don't know. I don't buy it.
Oh, absolutely. I think he would just rather people say, oh, he's an angry vegan, because that's a more acceptable thing to be called than being called a racist. Because a lot of people, even if they do racist things, would never want to be called a racist, because that is the closest thing that they can feel to actual racism. So, Bryan Adams, sir, what you did was not all right.
Okay, just to play devil's advocate here, do you feel like there was anything that he said that was maybe taken out of context, or do you feel like even his apology was a good apology?
Okay, so that apology was a non-apology. Essentially, what he said was, I'm sorry if you were offended by what I said, not I'm sorry for saying what I said. And those are two completely different things, because one accepts responsibility for his actions, and the other one is saying, sorry if your feelings were hurt, but I still did it. So...
yeah, it's almost like when you do something but you mean it, but you say sorry because you don't want to come across as the bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely. His PR person is sitting there being like, you need to get rid of this right now. We have to kill this thing before it goes any further.
But it's just, I don't know, Natalie. I'm just worried about what this will eventually lead to. And again, I think right now, with these situations happening so close in proximity with, again, Don Cherry and Bryan Adams, and again, you're starting to see a lot of this pop up here close to home, and Canada is celebrated as this multicultural mosaic. To me, it just reaffirms a lot of these fears that we had growing up.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, maybe we are somewhat closer to our neighbors down south.
We are. The thing is racism has always existed here. Like, we are a country that was founded on colonialism and genocide of Indigenous peoples. So that's just a fact. But at the heart of it, what it really comes down to is you can't really, how do I word this in a nice way? You can't really pretend that we're better in the States just because things look differently here. Because racism is still racism, no matter what shape it takes, you know? So it's just really upsetting to see someone like that kind of be like, oh, I never would have done something like this. And Don Cherry being like, well, like, it is what it is. Because a lot of people are offended by that. Like, we are a very multicultural country, and a lot of our population are people who are immigrants from other places. And so it's just really easy to feel like you are unwelcome and unwanted, and that people just really discount your existence as someone who's in a minority group when you hear things like that.
And it's one of those things where, again, the fact that we're exposed to so much that happens in the U.S., when someone like a Bryan Adams who's from the U.S. gets canceled, or there's a big uproar regarding something that they said. Like, you think about Roseanne Barr as an example, right? And when she dropped that tweet, like, it completely ruined her. And there's always this feeling amongst us Canadians thinking, oh, you know what? I'm so happy I live in Canada. It's not like that. Or I'm so happy with this multicultural world that we live in where everyone's accepted. But it's like, no, it's not. Like, this stuff is around. We just, again, maybe we're sheltered a little bit from it in a better way. But I don't know. I feel like for the last little bit, we've just been seeing more of it.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's been something that's always been there. And just when you hear people saying it like this in a way that's maybe more widely accepted because it just doesn't sound so bad, then, like, that just paves the way for worse comments to come along. So it's just really frustrating. And Canadians love to say, oh, we're so much better than the States. Like, this would never happen here. And it's like, well, look around. It is happening here. Like, maybe it looks a little different, but, like, we still have, you know, gun violence against Black people here. We still have more Indigenous people jailed than we do, like to a higher extent than we do other groups. Like, it's happening here too. And I don't know why people would just not want to see that.
So, Natalie, I'm going to put you in the hot seat. If you were in charge of Bryan Adams' PR team, what would you have done differently when it came to the situation?
I think I would have definitely had him do a better apology because, like I mentioned, the one that he did just didn't really accept any responsibility or any wrongdoing for his comments. And I think it would have been better if maybe even if he did like a video apology, if he like went on CBC and said, I am really sorry. I know people are sick and people are dying, and it wasn't right of me to try to blame people from China. Just something that actually addressed what he did wrong.
Yeah, and I think as you were saying that, I was just thinking of the word empathy. Like, I think there could have been a moment of empathy here where, again, a video message could have gone a long way. Like even reaching out to the Chinese Canadian National Council for Social Justice and maybe having a conversation and maybe reaffirming that, hey, I was out of line. Like, I think there was an ability for him to still save face. I think the fact that, to your point, he apologized not because he offended people, but because, he apologized not because of what he said, but how he offended people. I think, I don't know, like, to me, I'll always have this sour taste of like Bryan Adams when I like hear one of his songs. Like, it won't resonate with me anymore. And
absolutely.
And it just, again, I don't think I'm totally canceling him. I think it's, I don't think a cancellation right now, it's fair to say he's canceled unless, some other stuff comes out. But I do feel that there could have been an opportunity to show empathy here.
Absolutely. And I think also just the whole cancel culture thing, it's quite different here than it is in the States and other places. Because if you look at the history of like major celebrities getting canceled here, a lot of them are still able to go on and do other things. Like you said with Don Cherry earlier, like he still has his restaurants, he still has his podcasts, like he's still able to go out and live his life. Nobody's going to really be yelling at him in the streets if he decides to go out for a beer or something like that. And like, there have been men who have done way worse things than him, and they just have gone unscathed. So it's just really kind of disheartening. But like at the same time, a lot of people aren't going to remember this in a year from now. And because they loved Bryan Adams for so many years, because he's been around for so long, this is just nothing to them. It's a little blip in the road, if anything.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see when Bryan Adams gets that next big sort of accolade, whether it's another Lifetime Achievement Award or something, right? I feel like this will definitely come up again. I think there will always be this sort of asterisk in his in his bio or in his history where it's like, hey, remember that one time that Bryan Adams went on a racial tirade on Instagram? But to your point, I don't think it'll be examined as deep as how you and I examined it just now past this point, because again, as Canadians, I don't know if that's just the mentality that we have in regards to us always giving people the benefit of the doubt, but yeah, it's really unfortunate. And again, you got to feel for organizations like the Chinese Canadian National Council for Social Justice, which is maybe seeing a lot of this, and this doesn't help their efforts when it comes to trying to mitigate some of this racism or xenophobic ideas that are maybe coming about due to the coronavirus.
Absolutely, for sure. Like, you see things happening, like all these anti-Asian hate crimes. Like, look at that girl in Vancouver who was attacked on the bus. So, like, him saying things like this, even though they don't really seem as dangerous as maybe like a physical violent encounter, it just paves the way for other more maybe less hostile microaggressions to pop up, and that just kicks open the door for more things like that to happen. So it just really makes you want to kind of re-examine things, because it's like it doesn't seem that bad in the major scope of it all. But if you really look at it, it's like this person with a huge platform and a huge amount of power said something like this casually, and a lot of people agreed with him. What does that say about Canadian society at large? Maybe we're not as nice as we'd like to think that we are, So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, yeah, you can only hope for the best, and I guess even with this blip taking place this week, I think hopefully there's other artists out there that learn from this and maybe think twice, or maybe allow for this to be a big learning moment. And if they are thinking the same way maybe this is an opportunity to, check yourself a little bit and maybe have an open conversation amongst the people around you, and just making sure that you're not just upset and saying whatever you want to say, because I think this is a prime example that, hey, there's a receipt, and whether or not you like that, this will always creep up against you no matter what.
Absolutely. Like, people are dying. It's too casual. It's not just a casual thing just to be like, oh, well, that was bad. Like, it's bigger than that.
Yeah. Natalie, just to end on a high note, you being a music writer and being stuck in the quarantine, is there any music that you're bumping right now that's getting you through the emotions? What are some of the things that you're keeping tabs on during this quarantine? And is there any albums that you want to recommend for any of the listeners at New Theory Radio?
So the new Moses Sumney album that's going to be coming out, he's released a few singles from it, and so far they've all been fantastic. So really excited for when that fully drops. And what else have I been listening to lately? There's been some really great covers coming out from a lot of the artists who are stuck in quarantine. So anything by Glass Animals has been pretty good. And James Blake as well has been doing some really good covers too.
Yeah, James Blake's IG Live is so good. I know a couple weeks ago, or even a couple months ago, he had done some Frank Ocean covers, and big James Blake fan. I'm glad he's releasing new music, and we'll definitely bring you back on New Theory Radio to talk about some happier stuff, because knowing that you're a writer for Beat Route and you've also done some music reviews, I think we can have some fun on the show and really dive deep, because I also love music, and I'm certainly using it right now to get through these tough times and to just avoid a lot of this noise that our good friend Bryan Adams caused this week. I probably won't be listening to any Bryan Adams for the next little bit, but I don't know. It's a tough time being a Canadian music fan.
There's always something going on with us.
Totally. Natalie, what's the best way that people can connect with you if they want to check out your work or even holler at you at social media?
I am always on my Twitter, a lot more than I would like to admit, so they can definitely catch me there. My handle is Nat Harmson, so they can check that, and that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. So yeah.
Amazing. That's Natalie Harmson. Thanks so much for joining us. Go check her out on Twitter and her awesome work with Exclaim and Beat Route. We are going to take a quick commercial break here on New Theory Radio, and we'll be right back on News Talk Saga 960 AM.
You are listening to New Theory Radio. Theory Radio.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. This is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. And my name is Nav Nanwa, and I am your host. And this actually concludes another edition of New Theory Radio. So special shout outs to my guest, Tariq Sbiet, who is the CEO of Northpole Hoops, as well as Natalie Harmson, an awesome music journalist, for joining me on today's show. If you want to connect with me, it is at @nnanwa on Twitter, at Nav Nanwa on Instagram. If you want to connect with New Theory Radio, it's at New Theory Radio across all platforms. We are actually going to be celebrating our 1-year anniversary on News Talk Saga 960 AM on June 7th. Yes, mark your calendar. Sunday, June 7th, we will be celebrating our anniversary on News Talk Saga 960 AM, and we're currently working on what the anniversary show will look like. We're going to have some special guests joining us, and it should be a great time. And if you want to connect with Saga 960 AM, it is at Saga 960 AM across all platforms. Special shout outs to my little brother Amit Nanwa. He is our creative director. He is at colorblind photography _. He's responsible for all of our graphics on social media. And special shout outs to Dusty Loops, the producer extraordinaire behind our theme song. Go check him out across all platforms at Dusty Loops. Actually, Dusty sent me some photos. Looks like he's been cooking a lot in the kitchen lately. So the next time I link up with Dusty Loops, once this quarantine is over, I'm expecting a home-cooked meal. As well, lastly, speaking of music, go check out our New Theory Sounds playlist on iTunes and Spotify, featuring artists that have appeared on New Theory Radio. We have the likes of Noise, Romana, who was a guest last week, Arlene Pakulin, the Adani Crisis, Havaya Mighty. All these artists are on the playlist, so go check them out. New Theory Sounds on iTunes and Spotify. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in, and you will hear all of us next time. Peace.